The argument had been going on for 3 hours, and David Reed wondered if anyone in this chamber actually remembered what they were fighting about anymore. He sat in his assigned seat, watching aliens from 40 different worlds shout over each other while holographic star maps flickered uselessly in the air. Nobody was looking at the maps. Nobody cared about solutions. The Taloran delegate slammed his scaled fist on the podium. The Brecken have no legal claim to those asteroid fields. We discovered them first. A Brecken representative rose, her insectoid wings vibrating with anger. Discovery means nothing without proper filing. We submitted our claim according to protocol. Your protocol is worthless bureaucracy. Your discovery is a fabrication. David closed his eyes. This same argument had played out 17 times in the past year alone. Different species, different resources, same pattern. They would yell until exhaustion forced a recess, then submit formal requests for human mediation. His people would solve the problem in a week. The grateful aliens would promise to handle things themselves next time. Then another dispute would arise, and the cycle would repeat. His data tablet buzzed with a message from Earth. The withdrawal authorization had passed the United Council vote, unanimous approval. Every human government on Earth and the colonies had agreed. No more. 300 years of this. 300 years of humanity serving as the galaxy's unpaid peacekeepers, engineers, doctors, and problem solvers. 300 years of being taken for granted. David thought about his daughter Rachel. She died stopping a war between the Karis and Shallan species. She was 32. The peace lasted 8 months before both sides found a new reason to fight. Human peacekeepers stopped that war too. Rachel's name was on a memorial wall somewhere, along with thousands of others who gave their lives for a galaxy that never learned to stop needing them. The Galactic Arbiter finally restored something resembling order. We will resume this discussion tomorrow. In the meantime, perhaps our human friends can offer guidance on a fair resolution. Of course, because humans always fixed everything. David stood up. The room went quiet. He rarely spoke during sessions unless directly addressed. I have a statement from Earth, he said. The Arbiter nodded indulgently. The Council welcomes Earth's wisdom. David activated his tablet. The official document appeared as a hologram above his head, translated into every language represented in the chamber. He read it word for word. For 3 centuries, humanity has served the galactic community. We have mediated 10,247 conflicts. We have maintained infrastructure on 893 worlds. Our medical teams have treated 47 different plague outbreaks. Our engineers have prevented 312 station failures. Our peacekeepers have died in wars that were not ours to fight. He paused, looking around the room. Some aliens were nodding. They thought this was leading to another offer of help. In return, humanity has received criticism for being too slow, too expensive, too soft, or too harsh. We have been called servants, tools, and useful primitives. We have been told that solving your problems is our purpose, our privilege, our duty. The nodding stopped. Effective immediately, Earth withdraws all peacekeeping forces, all engineering support staff, all medical personnel, and all diplomatic mediators from galactic service. Human-maintained systems will be transferred to local control within 30 days. Earth will honor existing defense treaties but will no longer intervene in galactic disputes. This decision is final and not subject to negotiation. Silence filled the chamber for exactly 4 seconds. Then the Taloran delegate laughed. Ambassador Reed, we understand you are frustrated. Perhaps you need a vacation. Humans do require more rest than evolved species. Other delegates chuckled. The Arbiter smiled sympathetically. David, we appreciate your passion, but surely Earth does not mean to abandon the community over a moment of wounded pride. We are not wounded, David said quietly. We are done. He walked out of the chamber. His security detail fell in beside him, two humans who looked relieved. Behind him, he heard the delegates already dismissing the warning, returning to their argument about asteroids they would never mine without human help. Back at Earth's orbital embassy, David found his wife Amy coordinating the withdrawal. She had been Earth's diplomatic director for 20 years. Charts and schedules covered the walls of her office. Robert Hayes reports the Magellan Array can be handed over in 23 days, she said. The local technicians say they are ready. Are they? No, Robert says they have observed the work but never actually done it. He gives them 6 months before the first major system failure. David nodded. Patricia. Dr. Okonkwo is trying to train the Talos physicians on plague protocols. They are not paying attention. They assume she will stay. Across the galaxy, human personnel were packing up. Lieutenant Rebecca Stone and her peacekeeping unit were evacuating from the Karis-Shallan border. She sent a brief message. Local forces already repositioning for conflict. Give it a week. Chief Engineer Robert Hayes was documenting every system at the Magellan Array, leaving detailed instructions that probably would not be read. Dr. Patricia Okonkwo was writing medical protocols that probably would not be followed. David looked at Earth through the window, that small blue world that had given so much to a galaxy that never said thank you. Do you think we're doing the right thing? Amy asked. I think we should have done this 200 years ago, David said. We taught them that we would always be there. We taught them they never had to solve their own problems. We thought we were helping. We were just enabling. People are going to die. People are already dying. Our people, their people. The only difference is that now they will have to save themselves. The withdrawal began. Transport ships arrived at human outposts across 47 star systems. Peacekeepers, engineers, doctors, and diplomats boarded in organized groups. They left behind equipment, instructions, and infrastructure that had kept civilizations running. The galaxy watched and assumed humanity was bluffing. They would be back. They always came back. But this time, every human ship turned toward home. And for the first time in 3 centuries, the galaxy was on its own. Rebecca Stone had never seen the border post so quiet. For 15 years, she and her unit maintained the peace between 2 species that hated each other with ancient passion. Every morning brought new incidents to resolve, new arguments to mediate, new threats to diffuse. The work never stopped. Now her team was packing equipment into transport crates, and the silence felt wrong. Commander Veles of the Karis Defense Force approached her position. His scales caught the purple light of the twin suns. You are truly leaving. Orders from Earth, Rebecca said, sealing another crate. We depart in 6 hours. We can handle security ourselves. Veles sounded confident, but his eyes betrayed doubt. My forces are well trained. Rebecca had trained those forces. They knew how to operate weapons and maintain patrols. They had no idea how to prevent a war. Have you established communication protocols with the Shallan Command? We will negotiate when necessary. And if they cross the boundary line, we will respond appropriately. Rebecca recognized that phrase. It meant violence. Commander, the peace here works because both sides talk before they shoot. Every single day, my people communicate with both your forces and theirs. We spot problems before they become incidents. We understand the process. Understanding is not the same as doing. Rebecca closed the last crate. Good luck, Commander. You are going to need it. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening. Chief Engineer Robert Hayes stood in the central hub of the Magellan Array, surrounded by alien technicians who had watched him work for 8 years. This cooling system requires constant monitoring, Robert explained for the 5th time. The sensors will alert you to temperature changes, but you need to respond within 12 minutes or the cascade begins. The lead technician, a Bellan named Urin, nodded. We have your instructions. The documentation is very detailed. Have you actually run a cooling cycle adjustment? We have observed you doing it many times. Robert resisted the urge to demonstrate one more time. They had to learn by doing, and he would not be here to save them when they failed. The emergency shutdown procedure is in Section 12. Read it tonight. Of course. Urin would not read it. Robert knew this. Urin knew Robert knew this, but the fiction had to be maintained. On Talos IV, Dr. Patricia Okonkwo was having the same frustrating experience. Chief physician, Tarek accepted her treatment protocols with polite disinterest. Your methods are most appreciated, Tarek said. We will continue the good work you have started. Patricia watched his staff through the window of the clean room. They were already violating sterilization procedures, touching equipment with bare hands, skipping decontamination steps. The plague will mutate if you do not maintain strict protocol. You saw what happened when we relaxed procedures for even one day. Yes, we remember. They did not remember, or they did not care to remember. Patricia felt the weight of every patient in this ward, knowing they would likely die once she left. Please, at least review the mutation prevention guidelines. Of course, doctor, we are most grateful for your instruction. His gratitude was empty. He believed she would stay. They all believed the humans would stay because humans always stayed. The transport ships departed one by one. Rebecca watched the purple planet shrink in the viewport as her unit left the Karashalan border. Around her, peacekeepers sat in silence. They had all devoted years to maintaining a peace that would probably collapse within days of their departure. Private Chen broke the silence. Did we fail them, Commander? No, Rebecca said. They failed themselves. We gave them peace. They never learned to create it. Robert Hayes took one last look at the Magellan Array before boarding his transport. The station was beautiful in its complexity, a masterpiece of engineering that connected 47 star systems. He had maintained it, improved it, and loved it like a child. Now he was handing it to people who barely understood how to check the oil. Dr. Patricia Okonkwo was the last human to leave Talos IV. She stood at the spaceport, looking back at the medical center where hundreds of plague victims waited for treatment. Her staff was already aboard. She could save them all if she stayed. Just a few more months to finish the treatment cycle. But staying would solve nothing. They would learn nothing. The next plague would kill even more people because no one local would know how to fight it. She boarded the transport. At the Galactic Council, the emergency session had been going for 9 hours. Representatives from 30 worlds were demanding that Earth reconsider. This is unprecedented, the Arbiter said, his voice tired. Ambassador Reed, surely we can reach a compromise. David attended the session via hologram from Earth. There is nothing to compromise. We are not negotiating. But the Karashalan situation is already deteriorating. We have reports of military buildups on both sides. Then the Council should mediate. We do not have the expertise. Then you should develop it. A Taloran delegate stood. Humanity has a moral obligation to maintain galactic peace. You built this system. You cannot simply abandon it. David almost laughed. We built this system by doing everything for you. We maintained it by never letting you take responsibility. We are not abandoning the galaxy. We are forcing it to grow up. People will die, another delegate said. People are always dying. The question is whether they die while you learn to save yourselves, or whether they die because you never learned anything. David's hologram flickered. This session is over. The image vanished. On Earth, Chancellor William Foster addressed a planetary assembly. Billions of humans watched as he explained the withdrawal in simple terms. We tried to help, he said. We thought we were building a better galaxy. Instead, we built dependence. We taught them that humans would always solve their problems, always fix their mistakes, always sacrifice our own people for their comfort. That ends today. The vote to maintain the withdrawal was unanimous, not because humans were cruel, but because they understood the difference between helping and enabling. 30 days after the announcement, the last human transport left the last galactic outpost. 300 years of human presence simply ended. The galaxy had to figure out what to do next. Most of them had no idea where to start. The first communication system failure happened on day 12. A minor glitch in the Magellan Array's cooling system, the exact scenario Robert Hayes had warned about. The temperature rose 3 degrees above normal. The sensors detected it. The alert sounded. Urin stared at the warning display, trying to remember the procedure. He had Robert's documentation somewhere. He searched through files while the temperature climbed. By the time he found the instructions, the system had begun an automatic shutdown to prevent damage. 17 star systems lost communication for 6 hours. It was just the beginning. Day 16 brought the first battle. The Karis accused the Shallan of crossing the boundary line. The Shallan denied it. In the past, Rebecca Stone would have checked the surveillance data, confirmed the truth, and diffused the situation within an hour. Now there were no surveillance systems, no neutral mediators, and no one trained to separate truth from accusation. Commander Veles ordered his forces to defensive positions. The Shallan interpreted this as aggression and mobilized their own troops. Within 2 hours, the first shots were fired. Within a day, both sides had committed to full military engagement. Veles tried to remember everything Rebecca had taught him about de-escalation, but he had never actually done it himself, only watched her do it. And she had made it look easy, which made him assume it was easy. It was not easy. The fighting spread across 3 border zones. Casualties mounted quickly. Both militaries were designed for garrison duty, not actual warfare. Soldiers died from basic tactical errors that any experienced peacekeeper could have prevented. On Talos IV, the plague mutated exactly as Dr. Patricia Okonkwo had predicted. Chief Physician Tarek and his staff had followed the treatment protocol, but they missed crucial steps in the sterilization process. They contaminated samples. They rushed procedures. They convinced themselves that small deviations did not matter. The new strain spread through the population in 3 weeks. It was resistant to all existing treatments. Infection rates tripled. The medical centers were overwhelmed. Tarek finally read Patricia's mutation prevention guidelines. He understood, too late, every mistake his team had made. He sent her a message begging for help. Her response was automated. Earth is no longer providing galactic medical assistance. We wish you well. He sent another message, offering money, resources, anything. The response was the same. At the Magellan Array, Urin was discovering that observation was not education. He had watched Robert Hayes maintain the station for years. He saw the procedures, knew the schedules, understood the theory. But Robert had possessed an instinct for the work, an ability to sense problems before they became critical. Urin had none of that. More systems failed. First communication delays, then complete outages. Banking systems crashed. Emergency services lost connectivity. Trade networks collapsed. The array handled data for 47 star systems, and now it was failing in slow motion. Urin tried contacting Robert Hayes directly, offering to pay any price for his return. Robert received the message in his home in Denver, where he was teaching engineering at the university. He showed it to his students as an example of why understanding principles mattered more than memorizing procedures. He did not respond to Urin. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions every day. Representatives reported crisis after crisis. Infrastructure failures, humanitarian disasters, military conflicts, economic collapse. Everything that humans had quietly maintained was now falling apart. "We must demand that Earth return," a Brecken delegate insisted. "They built this system. They are responsible for maintaining it. David Reed attended one of these sessions, his last official act as ambassador. We built nothing. We did the work you refused to do. We maintained the systems you refused to learn. We solved the problems you refused to address. That was our mistake, and we have corrected it. But people are suffering, the arbiter said. The Karashalan War alone has killed thousands. How many humans died maintaining the peace you refused to create yourselves? David asked. How many of our people gave their lives so you could avoid learning basic conflict resolution? The chamber went silent. Earth offers one path forward, David continued. Solve your current problems yourselves. Demonstrate that you can function without constant human intervention. Then, perhaps, we can discuss a different kind of partnership, one based on mutual respect rather than exploitation. A Talaran delegate stood. We offer formal apologies and reparations for past treatment of human personnel. We do not want apologies, we want change. We will change, we promise reforms. David smiled without humor. You have promised reforms 17 times in the past century. We have documentation. Every promise was broken within a year. Show us results, not promises. The council drafted elaborate proposals, trade agreements, technology exchanges, cultural programs. Everything they should have offered 300 years ago. They sent official delegations to Earth with gifts and speeches. Chancellor Foster received them in Geneva. He listened politely to every presentation. Then he asked each delegation the same question. Have you resolved your current crisis? None of them had. They all wanted Earth to resolve the crisis first, then they would implement reforms. Foster thanked them for coming and sent them home. 6 months after the withdrawal, the galaxy was in chaos. Wars raged in regions that had been peaceful for decades. Critical infrastructure failed daily. Plague and famine spread on worlds that had relied on human aid. Trade routes collapsed. Communication networks failed. The Galactic Council was paralyzed. They had spent centuries letting humans solve problems. Now they had no idea how to solve anything themselves. In her small office, Iris the Felnar was compiling data. She had documented every human contribution to galactic civilization over 3 centuries. The numbers were staggering. Humans had done so much, asked for so little, and received nothing but contempt in return. She prepared a report for the Arbiter showing exactly how dependent the galaxy had become, how humans had maintained systems that local species never learned to operate, how human peacekeepers had prevented wars that local diplomats never learned to avoid, how human doctors had treated diseases that local physicians never studied properly. The report proved what Earth had been saying all along. The galaxy was not ready to function without humanity. And now it had no choice but to learn. The diplomatic mission arrived at Earth with 50 ambassadors representing the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They came bearing gifts, cultural artifacts, and carefully prepared speeches about friendship and mutual cooperation. Chancellor Foster greeted them at the United Earth Assembly Hall in Geneva. The meeting was broadcast across both Earth and the galactic networks. Billions watched. Ambassador Gren of the Talaran species spoke first. He was the same delegate who had called humanity servants 6 months earlier. Now he stood before Earth's leadership with a prepared apology. We recognize that our past treatment of humanity was inappropriate, Gren read from his notes. We offer our sincere regrets and hope to build a new relationship based on mutual respect. Foster listened without expression. When Gren finished, Foster asked a single question. Have you resolved your resource dispute with the Brecken? Gren hesitated. We are willing to negotiate once Earth provides neutral mediation. So you have not resolved it. The situation is complex. We need experienced mediators. You need to learn how to negotiate without us. Foster gestured to the next speaker. One by one, ambassadors made their appeals. They offered trade deals, technology sharing, economic incentives. They promised reforms and changes and new eras of cooperation. Some spoke of friendship and shared history. Others appealed to human compassion. Foster listened to each presentation. Then he asked each ambassador variations of the same question. Have you fixed your infrastructure? Have you trained your own people? Have you solved the problems you are currently facing? None of them had. They all wanted Earth to fix things first, then they would handle everything themselves. The old pattern dressed in new words. After 8 hours, a Karis delegate changed tactics. Commander Stone's withdrawal from our border has resulted in massive casualties. By removing peacekeeping forces without ensuring proper transition, Earth has violated mutual defense agreements. Foster smiled. Earth has never signed a mutual defense agreement requiring peacekeeping forces. We provided those forces voluntarily. We have now stopped providing them voluntarily. Show me the treaty that says we must. The delegate could not. No such treaty existed. Humans had simply always said yes when asked for help, so everyone assumed it was mandatory. A Brecken representative tried next. If Earth does not resume trade partnerships, we will be forced to implement economic sanctions. Against what? Foster asked. Earth is completely self-sufficient. We have our own food, our own energy, our own manufacturing. We trade with the galaxy because it is convenient, not because it is necessary. Sanctions would hurt you far more than they would hurt us. The delegate sat down. Then a Shallan ambassador made the worst mistake of the session. Perhaps Earth needs to be reminded that the galaxy possesses military power. Cooperation should benefit all parties, but it can also be compelled. The room went very quiet. Foster did not raise his voice. Are you threatening war? I am simply nodding that Earth's defensive capabilities, while respectable, are not infinite. Foster activated a display. Admiral Diane Brooks appeared, broadcasting from Fleet Command. She was a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen combat. Admiral, please provide our guests with a brief assessment of Earth's current military status. Brooks nodded. Earth maintains a defensive fleet of 847 capital ships, 3,200 support vessels, and 16,000 fighter craft. We have orbital defense platforms around Earth and all 12 colony worlds. Our weapons technology is 30 years ahead of the galactic standard because we actually invest in research rather than expecting someone else to do it. She paused, letting the numbers sink in. More importantly, our forces are fully trained and combat ready. We maintain that readiness because we spent 3 centuries watching galactic conflicts while you all assumed we would always protect you. Our officer corps has actual combat experience. Our soldiers train constantly. Do you know what your forces do? The ambassadors did not answer. Your forces have forgotten how to fight. You let humans handle security for so long that you cannot even remember what war looks like. So yes, you could attempt military action against Earth. You would lose quickly and you would lose badly. Brooks nodded to Foster and disconnected. Foster looked at the Shallan ambassador. Any other thoughts on military compulsion? The ambassador said nothing. The meeting ended with no agreements reached. The ambassadors returned to their ships frustrated and confused. They had expected negotiation. They received refusal. But the galaxy tried one more approach. They began broadcasting footage of suffering civilians across public networks, children dying from plague on Talos IV, refugees fleeing the Karis-Shallan War, families starving on worlds where human agricultural aid had ended. The broadcasts were designed to pressure Earth's population into demanding intervention. They worked partially. Protests erupted in several cities. Humanitarian organizations called for action. But something unexpected happened. Larger counter-protests emerged. people who had lost family members in galactic service, veterans who had survived peacekeeping missions, engineers who had spent careers maintaining ungrateful civilizations. A massive public forum was held in London. Dr. Sarah Kim, a trauma psychologist, explained codependency and enabling behaviors to an audience of millions. When you constantly save someone from consequences, you prevent them from learning. When you always solve their problems, they never develop problem-solving skills. We thought we were being compassionate. We were actually creating permanent dependence. Commander James Wright, a retired peacekeeper, testified about losing his entire unit stopping a war that restarted 3 years later. I watched my friends die for a peace that both sides abandoned the moment we left. That is not honor. That is waste. If we go back now, we teach the galaxy that they never have to change. More humans will die and nothing will improve. Earth's population voted on the withdrawal policy. 73% supported maintaining it. The message was clear. Meanwhile, Iris presented her report to Arbiter Coral. 300 years of data showing systematic exploitation of human generosity, promises made and broken, reforms pledged and abandoned, a galaxy that had built itself on human labor and sacrifice while giving nothing in return. Coral read the report 3 times. He had been Arbiter for 80 years. He had always seen humans as reliable problem solvers, valuable assets. Iris's data forced him to see the truth. The system was broken. It had always been broken. Humanity was the only thing that made it function, and now that support was gone. Nathan was 23 years old and had never lived through a real war. His species, the Karis, had enjoyed peace for 7 decades thanks to human peacekeepers. Now those peacekeepers were gone and his people were dying. He watched Commander Veli's plan another offensive, another series of attacks that would accomplish nothing. The Shallan would counterattack. Both sides would lose more soldiers, and the war would continue because nobody knew how to end it. Nathan had spent the past week reading every report Rebecca Stone had filed during her 15 years at the border. She documented every conflict she mediated, every crisis she diffused. He noticed something. She always started by finding common ground. He requested a meeting with Veles. "Commander, may I propose something?" Veles looked up from tactical displays. "If you have a military strategy, the planning staff should hear it." "Not a military strategy, a diplomatic one. We are at war. Diplomacy is impossible." Commander Stone always said war happens when diplomacy stops. Maybe we stopped too soon. Veles almost dismissed him, but 8 months of war had killed thousands of Karis soldiers and accomplished nothing. "What do you propose?" "Direct talks with the Shallan. No conditions, no demands, just talking." "They will never agree." Nathan had already sent a message to a young Shallan officer he found mentioned in Rebecca's reports, someone who had worked with the human peacekeepers, who might remember there were alternatives to killing. "I think they might. They are dying too." The first meeting was a disaster. Both sides spent an hour blaming each other for starting the war. Ancient grievances surfaced. Accusations flew. The talks nearly collapsed after 90 minutes. Nathan pulled out one of Rebecca's reports. "Commander Stone wrote that both our species want the same thing: security for our people, prosperity for our worlds. The only question is whether we achieve that through cooperation or destruction." A young Shallan officer named Shira nodded slowly. "Our casualties have exceeded 15,000. We have achieved nothing." "Karis losses are similar," Nathan admitted. "We are destroying each other over boundary lines that matter less than the lives we are losing." The talks continued. 6 weeks of painful negotiation, multiple breakdowns. Both sides made demands they could not enforce. But slowly, clumsily, they learned what Rebecca had always done. They learned to compromise. The final agreement was imperfect. Neither side got everything they wanted, but it ended the war. When Veles signed the treaty, he realized he had just accomplished something humans always did for his people. It felt strange and difficult and necessary. At the Magellan Array, Uran was failing. More systems crashed every week. He had Robert's documentation, but documentation could not replace experience. Then Uran made a decision. Instead of trying to fix everything alone, he gathered every technician on the station. They stopped following Robert's procedures and started studying the underlying engineering principles. It took 4 months of intensive learning. They made terrible mistakes. Several systems failed catastrophically and had to be completely rebuilt, but they were learning the theory, not just the steps. Uran contacted Robert Hayes, not to beg for help, but to ask for clarification on engineering concepts. Robert was surprised. He provided a 2-hour lecture on power distribution theory, not fixes but understanding. 6 months later, Uran and his team restored the Magellan Array to full functionality. It took them months to do what Robert could have done in days, but they did it themselves. On Talos IV, chief physician Tarek watched millions die from his mistakes. The plague had spread beyond control. His world was dying, and he knew it was his fault. He made a different kind of request. He contacted Dr. Patricia Okonkwo, not to beg for her return, but to ask for training. "I failed my people through ignorance," he said. "I do not want another physician to repeat my failures. I am willing to come to Earth to study properly, to learn what I should have learned years ago." Patricia brought the request to the United Council. The debate lasted weeks. Some argued this was exactly the enabling behavior Earth needed to avoid. Others saw something different. "He is not asking us to solve his problem," Patricia argued. "He is asking us to teach him to solve problems. That is fundamentally different." Chancellor Foster made the decision. Earth would accept Tarek and 9 other Talos physicians for a full medical residency. 5 years of training. No shortcuts, no special treatment. They would learn alongside human medical students and meet the same standards. Tarek accepted immediately. He spent 5 years on Earth, learning not just treatments but methodology. When he returned to Talos IV, he brought knowledge that would save his world. Word of these successes spread. Other species began requesting similar arrangements. Engineers who wanted to understand their systems. Diplomats who wanted to learn conflict resolution. Scientists who wanted to develop their own research capabilities. Earth established the Collaborative Development Program. Not aid, but education. Species sent their best people. Students met Earth standards, and they committed to teaching others when they returned. Not everyone embraced this change. The Taloran and Brecken refused to negotiate their dispute without human mediation. Several other species insisted Earth still had moral obligations to help. Arbiter Coral faced a choice. Iris's reports showed the pattern clearly. Species that tried to solve problems were improving. Species that demanded human help were stagnating. He proposed new council protocols. Species must demonstrate self-directed efforts before requesting assistance. The council would support independence, not dependence. Half the council revolted. They claimed this violated galactic principles. The Taloran ambassador accused Coral of betraying galactic values. Coral showed them Iris's data. 3 centuries of human intervention creating systemic weakness. True mutual aid means helping species become independent, not perpetuating dependence. The vote was close, but the reforms passed. 14 months after the withdrawal, the galaxy had changed fundamentally. Some species were thriving through self-reliance. Others were failing through stubborn entitlement. Rebecca Stone watched news of the Karashalan peace treaty with unexpected pride. Nathan and Shira had done what she always did, but they had done it themselves. Robert Hayes received a message from Uran. The Magellan Array was fully operational. maintained by local engineers who understood their systems. Patricia Okonkwo met her first class of Talos medical students. They were humble, dedicated, desperate to learn. This was what she had always wanted, not to save everyone but to teach them to save themselves. The galaxy was learning to stand on its own. 5 years had passed since the withdrawal, and David Reed stood in the Galactic Council chambers for the first time since he walked out. The room looked the same, but everything else had changed. The Karas-Shalan Confederation now provided mediation services to other species. Nathan, the young diplomat who ended a war, had trained hundreds of negotiators. Their success rate was lower than what humans achieved, but it was theirs. The Magellan Array ran at 92% efficiency under local management. Chief Technician Urin had established the Magellan Technical Institute, training engineers from 47 star systems. They maintained their own systems now. The Talos Medical Academy had graduated 300 physicians trained in proper methodology. Chief Physician Tarek had returned from Earth and contained the plague within 8 months using locally developed treatments. Talos IV was now a center for infectious disease research. But not every story had a happy ending. The Taloran and Brecken had refused to adapt. Their resource dispute escalated into economic warfare. Both species demanded human mediation repeatedly. Earth maintained its position, no mediation without self-directed attempts at resolution. Neither species would negotiate without guarantees. Their economies collapsed. Trade networks failed. Millions suffered from preventable problems. David watched the suffering on news broadcasts. The images were real and devastating. Some humans called for intervention, but Foster held firm. If we intervene now, every species learns that stubbornness works. The galaxy will revert to dependence within a decade. Sometimes compassion requires difficult boundaries. After 18 months of economic collapse, young Taloran activists forced change. Massive protests demanded their government negotiate. Representative Gren was removed from power. The new government requested mediation training, not mediation itself. Earth sent diplomatic instructors. The Taloran and Brecken began talks under their own mediators. The process was painful and slow, but 3 months later they reached an agreement. It was not the perfect solution humans would have created, but it was theirs, and they would honor it because they built it themselves. Iris, the young Felnar who documented everything, became the youngest arbiter in galactic history at age 37. Her first act was establishing the Galactic Self-Sufficiency Initiative, not doing work for species, but teaching methodology, funding local innovation rather than importing solutions. Earth's relationship with the galaxy had fundamentally changed. Humanity did not return to its old position as universal problem solver. Instead, they built something new. The Collaborative Development Program expanded to 15 universities across Earth and the colonies. Thousands of galactic students studied there, paying tuition, meeting standards, earning their knowledge through effort rather than entitlement. Human experts provided consultation, not free service. Species paid fair rates for advice and training. The relationship was professional and reciprocal. Admiral Brooks proposed a new defense structure. Instead of human peacekeepers managing everything, regional forces were developed. Earth provided training for military commanders. They shared defensive technology in exchange for resources and research partnerships. The galaxy's military capabilities became distributed rather than centralized. Each region was responsible for its own security, with Earth as a partner instead of a protector. David retired from diplomatic service after 47 years. His daughter Rachel's death finally felt meaningful. The galaxy she died to protect had learned to protect itself. He wrote a memoir documenting the 300 years of human service. It became required reading in galactic history courses. a reminder of what happened when civilizations stopped taking responsibility for themselves. Rebecca Stone took a position training Karis Shallan peacekeepers. She taught them skills she once used to protect them. Watching her students succeed filled her with pride. Her purpose was never to keep peace forever, but to teach others how to create it. Robert Hayes consulted for the Magellan Technical Institute. He visited quarterly to lecture on advanced engineering. Urin was now his colleague, not his student. They collaborated on new technologies as equals. Patricia Okonkwo directed the Earth Talos Medical Exchange Program. She and Tarek co-authored research papers on plague prevention. She had achieved something greater than curing diseases. She created a generation of doctors who would cure diseases themselves. 3 years after the withdrawal, the Galactic Council called a special assembly to honor Earth's 3 centuries of service. Foster attended, expecting empty speeches and meaningless gestures. Instead, Arbiter Iris presented something different. The Council had constructed a memorial at their headquarters. It listed names of every human who died in galactic service. Thousands of names carved in stone. The inscription read, "They taught us to stand. We honor them by standing." Foster stood before the memorial with tears in his eyes. This was not thanks for services rendered. It was acknowledgement of sacrifice and recognition of lessons learned. He addressed the assembled species. The withdrawal was painful for everyone. Earth could have communicated better, warned earlier. But it was necessary. I challenge you to continue growing. Never again become dependent on any single species. Build systems based on mutual respect and shared responsibility. Remember that true strength comes from self-reliance. Iris proposed a new galactic charter. The Covenant of Equals replaced old protocols. Every species had equal voice and equal responsibility. Assistance was always reciprocal. No species could demand service from another. Conflicts required self-directed effort before requesting support. 137 species signed the charter. Earth signed as an equal partner, not a superior benefactor. 10 years after the withdrawal, David's grandson Peter entered the diplomatic corps. He was 25, idealistic and smart. David gave him advice on his first assignment. Your job is not to solve their problems. Your job is to help them solve their own problems. There is a difference. Peter asked if his grandfather regretted the withdrawal. David looked at galactic news feeds. Species cooperating, innovating, building. The chaos and inefficiency of genuine self-governance. No, I regret it took us 300 years to do it, but I am proud we finally found the courage to let go. Earth's final warning was ignored. Courtesy finally ended, but the galaxy survived. Not because humanity returned to save it, but because it learned to save itself. And in that learning, both Earth and the galactic community discovered something more valuable than the old relationship. They discovered mutual respect between equals, the foundation of a sustainable future.